Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.
Our Town, the show about Rochester, learns about the upcoming Rochester Pride festivities, and we hear about the Med-City Meander for cyclists of all ages. We also have a blast at chip shots and catch up with Rochester's longest-running newspaper. All that and so much more coming up next on Our Town, the show about Rochester. Coming to you from 125 Live in Rochester, Minnesota, Our Town. May is Rochester Pride, and we're joined today by BJ Gangestad-Birk, Vice Chair of Rochester Pride, here to tell us all about the festivities. Welcome to Our Town, BJ.
Hi.
Can you tell us what Pride is and why honoring Pride is such an important thing to do in a community?
So Pride notoriously is a large festival in Rochester. We are holding it every May. It's important for the LGBTQIA plus community in order to show our community, show our pride for each other, our love for one another, and show that we're here, we're queer, and we're ready to have a good time and fight for our rights and ourselves.
So much of Pride is about sort of holding the space for the celebration, as well as for like the ongoing struggles and issues that are going on that are facing the LGBTQIA plus community. Can you talk to us a little bit about just the events that are going on for Pride this year and what you're particularly excited about?
We have so many events this year. Like I'm just excited about it all. We have a week of events. It's going through the weekend, and there are drag shows. I have a whole list. There's pop arts theaters holding queer films this month. We have Pride Yoga. We have a play going on as well. There's drag brunches, but then there's also our festival on Saturday, held at Soldiers Field Park. There's going to be live music, a bunch of live musicians or local live musicians. We have 100 plus food vendors. We have 100 plus vendors, food trucks, activities. The Rochester Public Library always has a huge booth with fun, family-friendly activities. We have yard games. I'm particularly excited just for the event this year and holding space for one another.
For folks that are thinking about going, do you have some like a guide in terms of like when to go, if folks are coming with family or with other friends? Are there some ways to sort of approach Pride this year?
I would say, so I think the biggest barrier this year, and I want to be transparent, is there's a lot of construction at Soldiers Field this year. So finding the time that works best for you and then allowing yourself enough time to make it to Pride. Give yourself the time and space in order to attend for as long as you want, but know that if you can't stay the whole time, that's totally okay. But there's going to be festivities from 12 to 5 p.m. the whole time. It's going to be a great time the entire time, but take it as you will.
That's great. And it sounds like you're partnering with a lot of different organizations and a lot of other spaces as well, so people can kind of sort of choose their own adventure. How can community members learn more about Rochester Pride and just any ongoing efforts that you have this year and beyond?
Rochester Pride has a website. We are pretty active on social media as well. I would say at any point in time, keeping up to date on our social media is probably the best bet. We have Facebook and Instagram. That's where you can find all Pride related events, all other efforts that we're doing and corresponding events throughout the community, our supporters, knowing who else supports us in the community, local businesses and such. So check out our social media pages, Rochem and Pride.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us, BJ, and hoping for some really good weather next week.
I'm hoping. So far it looks sunny, so I'm gonna keep hoping on that.
Awesome. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Be sure to stick around. We have much more coming your way on Our Town. We learn about the benefits of personalized assisted stretching and get the latest from our legislative rundown. We also catch up with We Bike Rochester as they prepare for the Med-City Meander. But up first, we sit down with some leaders of Rochester's newspaper of record as they reflect on changes over the last decade in this week's Our Culture segment.
We started this years ago, but we called it a stand-up meeting. Basically just all go around in a circle and talk about what we're working on, what's coming up.
Productions that they're looking at, and maybe drawing a few parallels to Rochester.
Conventions are coming up, so the GOP convention is May 16 through 18.
I'm also looking at a new business called Green Lily Behavioral Health.
We've had a lot of changes, obviously, and relocating to a new office space has been a big change. Having new ownership has been a big change, and of course there have been enormous changes through our industry. Probably the hardest change has been bringing our audience with us and aligning the expectations of the audience with each other. We have some members in our audience who really have embraced digital, and some who are really wedded to what they consider a newspaper to be, which is sort of an outdated paradigm at this point.
Losing that big building downtown was also a loss for us when it came to perception, but we just had a big business after hours, a chamber event here last week, and to see people react to this kind of location and to see that we're still a major presence in Rochester and what kind of space we have and what kind of team we have. The inside of the Post Bulletin, and physically the inside is such a cool place. I mean, we're here above Think Bank and Southwest. It's a really awesome office.
I really love the newsroom experience. Making those connections and working collaboratively in a newsroom is really what drew me in, and we do have a really good team of people, and I really like the people I work with, and we do have a really nice newsroom. It's one of the nicest I've seen as far as the actual physical place.
The team behind me here is phenomenal. They're the largest news gathering staff in southeastern Minnesota. This is a team that's producing a dozen stories a day, 4,000 plus stories every year. No one else is doing the kinds of things these guys do, and they really care about it to a person.
There's no substitute for having a photographer on hand, for having reporters on hand, for having salespeople on hand. I mean, those are people you definitely have to have in your community. And in that sense, our presence is just about as great as it's ever been. The passion that people bring every day is amazing. It's been a hard time that some companies have had getting people back into the workplace. Our people came back. It's not a full newsroom every day, we still allow a bit of a hybrid, work arrangement. We've got a group of people here, 22 people that generally all get along and like to be together, like to work with each other.
We're really open with each other and communicate when we see something on our own beats that intersects with someone else's, to say, hey, while I was out reporting, I heard about this. Would you be interested in this story?
Certainly for us, again, the immediacy of the news coverage is something like we never were able to produce previously. It's awesome to be able to instantly look at your phone and find out why there's a police presence at some location downtown.
I write a morning newsletter, and I frequently get an email or two from people responding to something that was in it, and they hear from me in a reply generally right away, within an hour or two, or as soon as I am able to sit down and tap out a reply. I think in some ways, some of this digital stuff has connected us to our audience a lot more closely than we had before.
We're still here. We've been here for 99 years. Next year will be our 100th year as the Post Bulletin, and we plan to be here for another 100 more.
For more information about this story and other Our Town features, connect with us on Facebook, Twitter at KSMQ #OurTown, or ksmq.org/OurTown.
Hi, this is Danielle Till with Our Town Spotlight, where we cover happenings, organizations, businesses in Rochester. And I have an amazing guest today with me today, Stephen Ng with Stretch Zone. Welcome.
Hey, thank you.
So glad to have you. So share a little bit about your role and the business.
So Our business is Stretch Zone. We were started in Florida. An incredible story. Started with a guy's grandpa, had been bedridden for 4 years at a young age of 68. So he took it upon himself to get every certification for stretching the nervous system and the muscular system. Read something fantastic, put together a plan, stretched Pop, as he calls them, every day at 11. 10 months later, Pop was able to get up and dance at a wedding. Pretty monumental for a guy that didn't leave his bed for 4 years. And so word of mouth spread. Next thing you know, every professional athlete and celebrity in South Florida was getting stretched by him, and that's kind of how our story started.
Okay, so there's stretching and different services that you provide. Go ahead.
Primarily, our service is stretching.
Is stretching,
So we have
okay.
a unique approach to it where we actually have more of a medical background. We work with the parasympathetic system to relax the tonus of the body and re-educate the stretch reflex.
That's really cool. So if someone were to come to receive some services, what's the initial process, an intake and then an assessment?
Yes, absolutely. The initial process is our complimentary consult where people come in. We kind of do a brief medical history, a brief previous injury history, and kind of figure out what keeps them ticking. Why do they need to come this? Do they have lower back issues? Are they pickleball players? Are they runners? Whatever they want to stay active in. We figure that out, and then based on what they tell us, we have a plan of what we're going to stretch and go from there.
Can anybody just request an assessment, or is this a referral process?
You can go ahead and either go to our website, stretchzone.com, or call us at 507-272-3037 and get on our schedule. That's the first thing, is just to get on our schedule, come in, do that consult. It's complimentary. And then initially, you're going to feel instant results, and then we'll talk about where to go from there.
Why do you think this is so important?
Because health is, we undervalue our health and our well-being so much. So if people have read books about, say for instance, the Blue Zone, why do they live so long? Mm-hmm. They have something that we can help them with, and that's hamstring, lower back, and hip mobility. We can help you achieve those goals, and we're all aging. So
that is true.
and age doesn't have to be a feel. It can just be a number.
Yes.
So, and that's what we try to do, is make everybody live in their highest quality of life for the longest period of time.
Awesome. We're going to put that website at the bottom of the screen here. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. This is Danielle Teal with Our Town Spotlight.
Hello once again, this is Michael Wojcik with your Our Town Legislative Rundown. And with just a few days left in the session and a number of balls in the air, this is truly going to be a rundown of what's going on. We do know that last year the state created an emblems commission to create a new state flag and state seal, and as of May 11th, they are now the official state seal and flag of Minnesota. When you have 1,000 different options to choose from for a flag, you can pretty much be assured that very few people are getting their favorite one, but we do have a flag that is very unique and stands out compared to other state flags, which are oftentimes the seal on a background, as ours was. One thing that we expect to come out of even years is a bonding bill. We haven't seen any official bill come forward yet. The DFL proposed $330 million for local projects, $600 million for state projects. We don't have final numbers because there's not an agreement, but it does require 60% to pass, so it has to be a bipartisan agreement to move forward. When Minneapolis passed their ordinance regulating Uber and Lyft, Minneapolis spurred the state into action about possibly a solution at the state level. While there seems to be agreement in the legislature around a proposal, the governor has not signed on to that, and certainly the rideshare companies have not either. Housing has been a big topic this year, and some of the most aggressive bills did not pass, and we're not going to see the light of them for the rest of the session. However, a couple of key things are that it looks like the House now is passing the Minneapolis 2040 resolution language that would end the lawsuit against their community comprehensive plan and ensure that other communities don't suffer the same fate. One thing that came out of the housing bill is there was going to be a ban on discriminating against the renting to people with Section 8 housing vouchers, but DFL Senator Ron Latz explicitly said he would not support the bill in there, so that anti-discrimination clause has been removed. The legacy bill has now passed, and it passed with bipartisan support. It looks like the entire Rochester delegation voted in favor of that, and that means the funding for Silver Lake Dam removal is included in that. Well, Senator Nelson did introduce some language that would have put up some additional hurdles. Those introductions were eventually removed. Junk fees looks to be passing after an unrelated filibuster, but this is going to require full prices to be shared with consumers on things that are for sale in Minnesota. And finally, the only piece of gun legislation moving forward appears to be a bill that would put stiffer penalties in place for straw purchases. This has been Michael Wojcik with your Our Town Legislative Rundown.
We're at Chip Shots for this week's Our Town Walkabout. Chip Shots was originally, the owners love golf, so that's kind of where they got the name from. So it started off as a golf place, but then we wanted to be kind of like the ultimate entertainment complex, where we have 6 simulators. 4 of them are multi-sport with golf, so they have like baseball, basketball, soccer, football, dodgeball, kind of every sports. We have a racing simulator, we have 3 pickleball courts, we can do cornhole, we do live music, we have a full kitchen and a full bar as well. We see a lot of people come for pickleball. That seems to be the new phase right now, where we do leagues, we have pickleball camps coming up, and we see them from, high school kids to, retired people that come during the day. We kind of see it all. There needs to be something like this in Rochester, for all ages. There's parking available, which is hard to be when you're downtown. And we have a large space, so we can hold large amounts of people, which is kind of nice. So our address is 3708 North Broadway Avenue. We're right in the old Shopco North building, right by Haley's and ETS. You can find all of our events, everything that we're doing on our Facebook page or on our website, which is chipshotsmn.com. We try to keep that updated as much as possible. It's great for the whole family. So you can come with a group of friends, you can come with your company, you can come celebrate a birthday party. It's good for all ages. We see people from 5 years old all the way to 75. So it's kind of for everyone.
We are joined today by Nick Miller of We Bike Rochester, here to tell us all about the upcoming Med City Meander. Welcome to Our Town, Nick.
Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for having us today.
So before we get into what the Med City Meander is, can you tell us a little bit about what We Bike Rochester is?
Of course. We Bike Rochester is a local community organization that's focused on engaging people, providing education, and advocating for safe public space for biking and walking and other forms of transportation.
Excellent. And this upcoming Med City Meander, can you tell us about it and what people can expect from participating in it?
So statewide, we have a lot of biking events and other events that are focused on community celebrations. Our parent organization and statewide is the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. And so people might have heard of rides like the Tour of Saints in St. Cloud, the Mankato River Ramble, things like that. Rochester has never had a ride. So we had a small family-friendly event called the Zumbro Pedal Party a few years ago. And we've always had this goal of having a big community celebration to showcase Rochester. So the Med City Meander is born, and this year will be our first event. And it's both a community celebration and, like I said, a showcase of Rochester. So for registered participants, we'll have a 30-mile, roughly, route along our trail system and throughout town, showcasing each of the quadrants of Rochester, but with rest stops along the way, with music, with food, with places to take a break. It's not a race like a marathon. It's really just a rolling community celebration.
A meander. This alliteration
is
great.
Exactly.
And it is a family-friendly event. What ages sort of do you recommend if folks are thinking about bringing their kids?
Yeah, great question. We'll have different components. So for ride registrations for the full 30-mile route, we are asking people to register. We have an Eventbrite page. You can find us at webikerochester.com to get connected to our social media accounts where you can do registrations. I should say we're almost sold out, which is very exciting, but if people are still interested, we have some tickets available. And then for the family-friendly portion, everything will start at Cascade Lake. There will be live music there throughout the day, and we'll do check-ins beginning around 8 a.m. But if a family or an individual or just anyone in the community wants to come and have a fun, free event, there's no registration just to hang out around Cascade Lake. You can do as many 2.5-mile loops around the lake as you want. We'll have, like I said, music, some arts and crafts, and other activities for kids and families. So what we're telling people is, if you haven't heard about this and just have a little bit of time on Saturday, May 25th, grab a picnic, grab your bike trailer, come on over to Cascade Lake, and just join in on the fun.
Excellent. Hoping for some good weather.
Hoping for some good weather. That's always the
For
thing.
sure.
Right?
In terms of the work of We Bike Rochester, why is advocacy around cycling and transportation, broadly speaking, so important in our growing city?
As you said, our city is growing, and some of the statistics as we look at the growth are really exciting and will bring challenges to our city. So nationally, we know that 1/3 of people can't drive, don't drive. Either they're too young, they're physically unable, cars are too expensive. And so when we think about the growth of Rochester, one of the implications of that is we'll have a growing number of non-drivers. And so in providing a transportation system that provides options for people, it's so important for us as we look at cycling as one of those options to provide advocacy for the public space, helping people to imagine and helping work with city leaders and other leaders in our community to make a safe space for people despite the mode that they're choosing so that they can fully participate in our community with or without owning an individual vehicle.
What do you see as the future of cycling and transportation in the city in the next decade or so? Because it really is part of sort of change making and cultural change within a city that is used to sort of having more of a driving culture. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I think about a few ways. One, from the infrastructure perspective, is we need a network that provides a transportation network for people. We have great segments, and our route this coming event will highlight that network. But we know there are critical gaps that keep people from being able to use it to get to the places that they need to. We've had a bridge out at Soldiers Field for a little while. It's difficult to cross North Broadway at Silver Lake. Fortunately, city leaders are seeing those opportunities to invest city resources and build a connected network that works for people. But we know that we have a full set of people that we're not serving yet because we don't yet have the safe all ages and abilities network. So it might work for some people, but particularly thinking about myself as a parent of a 9-year-old, there are places in town that I don't allow my daughter to go independently or even on her own bike just because it feels unsafe. And so what I think of as the future, as my hope and our vision for Rochester, is to provide a city that provides space for people of all ages and abilities to get around safely by the mode of their choosing, not mandating any one transportation option, but providing just that, options.
Sure. I think that's often at the center of a lot of conversations around mobility, is that giving people more options and more choices as opposed to mandating certain things.
Well, I was going to say, one of the other ways when we think not of infrastructure, but of programming and education, that's a core component of our work, and especially at the statewide Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota, we provide a lot of education, particularly in elementary schools. And so Bike MN has developed the Walk Bike Fun curriculum, training physical education teachers and other trainers to provide skills and safety training to children, so that from an early age, cycling is seen as an option for transportation, and that those participants can do it safely, knowing the rules of the road, knowing the safety precautions to take, and having an imagination for how they might live independently in the world, in their neighborhoods, see friends and have fun and build just community among, just in the places where we live.
For sure. Some of what you said in terms of, working with the schools and education also gets to issues of sort of equity and some of those barriers around sometimes cycling culture and sort of conversations around biking can look a certain way or sort of be taught, sort of center certain populations. Can you talk a little bit about just sort of, some of those equity issues within the cycling culture?
Well, definitely equity culturally, equity in abilities. And so as we've looked at what our mission is, we've traditionally started with looking at bicycles as a form of transportation, but we've seen a shared value in looking at what are safe and accessible public spaces that connect people. And so even working with partners in the disability community to say what are what are the shared needs and how can we work together to build out a public space. We also know that culturally, bicycling might not be something that people grew up with as a mode of transportation or even an option. And so we've developed curriculum in multiple languages to be able to engage adult first-time riders and provide them also with the skills and bring people together, because more than anything else, that's what we have found in moving from bicycling as just recreation to bicycling as a transportation and community building activity, is that it really can bring people together, and that's our goal as We Bike Rochester.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Nick, and I hope to see you at the Meander.
Thank you, Nicole.
And thank you all for joining us today. I hope you learned as much as I did about all that's going on in our city and all the wonderful people making it happen. For more content produced right here in Rochester, please be sure to check us out on Facebook and Twitter at #OurTown. I'm Nicole Fenoy-Amhara, host of Our Town, the show about Rochester. We'll see you next week.
Funding for this program is provided in part by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund and the citizens of Minnesota.